Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Adam Ratliff with Adam So Fun, and I have some good and bad news. First off, I am recording this way past the time when we recorded this video. I apparently deleted the file off of the SIM card that had our opening. So this is going to be a video with me and Kelley Janome, aka Kelley McKenzie, aka KelleySoSew with an S-O-S-E-W. Thank you to Kelley, thank you to Janome for letting us use the machines, and Kelley for really doing this video. So what we're doing in this video is a different way to do a crosshatch. So there's a great video from Megan Best, bestquilter.com, where she showed how to do a crosshatch and basically do a crosshatch edge to edge, but have everything look great and everything look perfect. And Kelley called me one day and she said, I want to do this, but I want to make it bigger. So I wanted a bigger version of that crosshatch. And so the funny thing is she called because she's like, how would you do this? And then she really knew how to do it because she's like, so she told me and I was like, yes, that's exactly how I do it. I think a lot of you think like, oh, I want to do this. I think this is how to do it. Here's the thing, go push those buttons. You never have to push play. And sometimes just talking to a friend and running those scenarios in your head, you're like, oh yeah, I knew exactly what I was doing. So it was funny, but she wanted a crosshatch as a bigger size. So in this video, we're gonna show you how to create a crosshatch design that can be stitched edge to edge, and then you can resize it to any size you want. So she's going to set up that initial design. We're going to resize it. We're going to do it as an edge to edge. This does use the mark feature in our Pro-Stitcher. I love mark. It's under your Pro-Stitcher tab, record in the ribbon. You should have this on Pro-Stitcher Lite, although I think the most current version of Pro-Stitcher Lite it is not on, but I know it was there in the beginning. So with me not being with Handy Quilter anymore, I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's coming back or when it's coming back. I just know it was there at one point and it wasn't there at another because we checked just yesterday to see if it was there or not. So you'll have to check with the version that you have. But yeah, we will get into the video. Before we get into it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you're notified when new videos drop. Again, a huge thank you to Janome and Kelley McKenzie. I will put links to their stuff. Go follow them. Follow Janome. If you have a long arm, you should be in Pro-Stitcher Posse. You can be on the Handy Quilter page. You can be on the Janome page. Just any long arm page, go follow those. I think it's Janome long arm users. But join that. Lots of questions there that get answered. Follow me on social media, Adam So Fun with an S-E-W on Facebook and Instagram. Kelley is on Instagram at KelleySoSew with an S-O-S-E-W, and on Facebook she's Kelley McKenzie. Go follow her. And then Janome, I think it's Janome Sewing Machines on Facebook and Janome, maybe just Janome on YouTube. I'll post it below. I make videos for them too. So some of our videos that we did together were on the Janome page, some here, some on Facebook. So you'll have to look around everywhere. So you should follow us everywhere. We're going to jump into the video. I hope you like it. At the end of the day, it's just quilting. Go have a good time. And yeah, go do some cross hatching. This is definitely something I'm going to use in the future. All right, we'll jump into the video.
Okay, now we're ready to get into Pro-Stitcher to create that crosshatch. Okay? So the first thing that I'm going to do is I am going to look at my tabs and select the one that says View so that I can turn my grid on. This is the very first step in creating the crosshatch. Now I'm going to need to use the zoom feature so I can zoom close to where my crosshair is so that I can see these individual squares. I'm going to now select the select option so that I can click off of zoom. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to move that crosshair as close as I can to the first corner of one of these squares. Each one of these squares represents 1 inch, and inside of those is four boxes going across and down representing a quarter of inches, just so you know. What I need to do is go to the Pro-Stitcher tab and select record in the ribbon and make sure that snap to grid is turned on. What snap to grid does is if I'm not perfectly on that line, it snaps it to that line for me. And we're going to be using the mark feature, which you see right up here at the top of the screen. The first thing I'm going to do is select mark. Now you'll also notice that mark has a diamond, which means I can use my handlebar buttons for mark instead of having to select it on my screen each time. What I'm going to do now is move my crosshair to where it is 2 inches at a diagonal from that first position that I marked. So there's the first position, there's 1 diagonal, 2 diagonals, that's 2 inches. I'm going to select mark again. Then I'm going to go up 2 diagonals again and select mark again on my handlebar. And I'm going to go down 2 more and select mark again. And I'm going to slide over so we can see. I'm going to go up 2 more at a diagonal and do that 1 more time. Okay. So, I'm going to give Adam a second to get the camera.
Good.
Okay, you're good? I'm going to go and turn off that grid now under the view tab because I don't like the grid in the background. It's too distracting for me. If you like it, you don't have to turn it off. What I'm going to do now is, right now the Pro-Stitcher thinks that I have 1, 2, 3, 4 different designs on here, or 4 different lines on here. I want it to read that as one, so I'm going to, in the toolbar, select baseline. Now that I've selected baseline, what I am going to do now is actually create the area where I am going to put my crosshatch at. So I'm going to move my needle to the top left-hand corner of my quilt, and I'm going to select the area tab and select 2 corner. 2 corner also has a star, which means I can use the star button on my handlebar, so that is what I'll do to make my second marking. I'm going to go all the way over to the side of my quilt and to the just barely outside the edge and select the star button again, or select the 2 corner button on my screen. Now I'm going to refresh my screen by selecting the refresh button at the bottom of the Pro-Stitcher screen so that I can see my crosshair, my design, and my area. Now this area is not accurate to what my actual quilt is. If I look over here on my right sidebar, it says that the width is 41.5 inches and the height is only 8. I'm going to click in that height box and I'm going to change that to 53 inches because my quilt is 53 inches long. Again, now I can't see my area all the way, so I'm going to select that refresh button at the bottom of the screen so I can see everything. Now that I've done that, I am going to resize this crosshatch to what the actual size that I want it to be, which I want to create a 5-inch crosshatch. So I'm going to go to the Modify tab and resize in the ribbon area. Over here on the right sidebar, you're going to see that lock is selected. I'm going to keep that lock on because I want it to change the width along with the height as I change the design. So I'm going to keep height selected, click in the number box, and select 5 and enter. And now it's made this crosshatch 5 inches tall. I'm going to baseline that change so that it remembers this new size. Now that I've done that, I'm going to align my design up with the corner of my area by going to Modify and Align, and I'm going to align my design to the left and to the top of my area. Now I'm going to create some repeats of this design. I'm going to go to the Repeat tab, and I'm going to select horizontally in the sidebar, and I'm going to select the plus sign until I've gone outside of my area. So there we go. That took 3 repeats. So that sees that 3 repeats as like 3 individual designs. So once again, I need to baseline this so it sees it as one solid repeat. So I'm going to select baseline in the toolbar. Now that I've selected baseline in the toolbar, I need to create the other half of this crosshatch. And to do that, I need to make a copy or a duplicate of the crosshatch line that I've created. Now, because it's easier to do that with the start point lined up with my crosshair, I am now going to change where my design is on my screen. This is just simply for designing this design. I will have to go back and realign it back up with my area after I get through doing this. So I'm going to go to the Modify tab, and I'm going to tell it to reposition my crosshatch right now with the start point lining up with my crosshair. Now that I've done that, what I need to do is duplicate this design. So I'm going to go to Edit and Duplicate. I know that you can't see a duplication because it's directly on top of itself, but if you wanted to make sure that it did duplicate it, you can select your workspace over here in the right sidebar and see that there is a repeat of that design that I created. Now that I've done that, I need to flip that second repeat. So I'm going to go to the Modify tab, I'm going to select rotate in the ribbon, and in the right sidebar, I'm going to select the flip option, which just flipped that duplicated line that I created. Now when you look at this closely, you can see that one of the lines is grayed out and one is dark, which means it's two separate things.
You're good, I'm just zooming in.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I want that to read as one solid design, so at the bottom of my screen, I'm going to select the Select All button. Now all of it is in black lines. I'm going to baseline this change. Now that I've done that, I'm going to refresh my screen so that we can see our whole area again. And I am going to align it back up to the area that I have set. So I'm going to go to Modify, Align. Over here, I'm going to select horizontally, align it to the left, and vertically align it to the top. Now I'm ready to create some repeats of this. Now remember, this is a 5-inch crosshatch, so we need to remember that number when we get to this point of creating this design. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to add a few repeats. I'm sorry, not horizontally, but vertically. So I selected vertical and then repeat. I've done 3 repeats right now. Remember, we needed to remember 5, so I'm going to go into the gap box, select the number box, and put 5 in there. What that has done is created a 5-inch gap in between each one of my 5-inch crosshatch rows. Now I need to make more repeats vertically so that it fills in my quilt. So I'm going to continue hitting the plus sign vertically until I have all that I need. So I had to do 6 repeats. What I need to do now, because I'm going to use a crop feature, is baseline this change. If you don't baseline the majority of the time when you're using crop, little weird things will happen. You need to always baseline before and after crop, unless you're using a different feature that we can use crop for, which we can go into in another video. And then I'm going to select Modify and Crop. And I am only going to tell it to crop the stitches on the outside. We are not going to crop the edges of this. If we did, some weird things could happen to where it tries to stitch all the way back across the top of your quilt. So in this particular case, we're not going to close out the edges. But I am going to baseline this. And now I'm going to save this quilt so that in case anything happens while I'm making it, I can go back and retrieve it. I already have a quilt named Add-on Quilt, so I'm just going to select that quilt and replace it by selecting it and selecting Save. And it says, do you want to override the existing file? I'm going to say yes. So now this is saved, and I'm ready to stitch out that first row of cross hatching. To do that, I'm going to go to the Pro-Stitcher tab. I'm going to select Quilt in the ribbon. I'm going to move my machine over here to close to the start point of the design. I'm going to make sure all of my options over here are highlighted. I have stitch highlighted. If you don't, it's not going to stitch. You have to tell it that you want it to stitch. So stitch is green. Start and end are highlighted green because it will lock my stitches at the beginning and the end of each row. And I have my pull up on and my pull up auto on so that it pulls my bobbin thread up for me and moves over to the side so that I can grab that thread. So I'm going to hold my top thread now, and I'm going to look at my screen, and I'm going to select the Run button, and I'm going to select Proceed. It's going to go to that start point. It pulled my bobbin thread up. I'm going to grab that bobbin thread. I'm going to continue holding both my threads, not letting go of it until after it's done a few stitches so that it doesn't bunch up at the bottom of my quilt. So now I'm going to select the Resume feature. It goes to the start point. It's locking my stitches in, and then it takes off.
I'm doing the next step because she ain't here. So it stitched out that first row. We have a beautiful crosshatch here. You might be able to see it if I turn the lights off. I don't know. We'll see. I'll zoom in. But I'm going to advance this using, it does look really good. I'm going to advance this using the non-yield down method. You can see the video advancing a quilt, drag and drop. I'll link it below. And that's the way we normally advance things. So I'm going to advance this up. There's not a lot of backing left. Let's see. Once we're advanced there, I'm just simply going to drag and drop. You can come in. You're fine. You can come in. Just try to be quiet. I'm going to grab a point, hit my drag, move that point back to where it is now, hit my drop, and then we'll run some checks. So we did that first one. She just came back. So I'm running my checks really quick just to make sure everything looks good. Now, this is my first time doing this. Kelley, have you noticed anything like if something shifts a little bit? Maybe I wasn't great at my advance. Are there places where it's like, oh yeah, everything's going to be fine? Does this technique make it easier?
If you didn't perfectly drag and drop, yes, there's forgiveness with this. That's the whole point of it.
Awesome. Did I hit drop? Yes. All right. So this is advanced. We'll let her go through and tell you what to do next.
Well.
Okay, we had to move it back farther because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't go far enough. So now I think we're ready to stitch the next one.
Yeah, so we had to do drag and drop a little bit more. Therefore, we're now having to tell it to make sure the start point is at the beginning of the second row. So I did go to New Start, New End and moved by using the jump button to make sure the start point is at the second row. And so now all we're going to do is stitch out that second row of cross hatching. So I'm going to go to Pro-Stitcher, Quilt. I'm going to select Run and Proceed. It's going to go to that first start point. I'm going to pull my bobbin thread up. I'm going to select the resume option. It's going to start this crosshatch stitching out.
And we're just stitching out the next row, like normal. Okay, good. All right, guys, we are back and we are stitched, and I'm going to bring you up close because I feel like we might need to see this next step done. So this is what your top is going to look like. And we have grid, empty. So this is where you go in with free motion, right?
With mark.
Oh, I was joking.
Oh. Don't confuse me.
I'm gonna try to, because this is a whole thing about how you can use mark to crosshatch, and I'm like, okay, you can go. Let me see if we can get some lighting to make this look better and see better. That's definitely not it. Will you turn on the light of the Quilt Maker Pro?
Yes.
The back one.
Okay. Does that look better?
I think this might be the lighting, guys. We're gonna try our best to make the lighting work for you as best you can, so you can see this next step. You explain what you're doing while I close these blinds and see if this will fix stuff.
Okay. So here's where it gets a little confusing, but not really. I'm going to create, using the mark feature, this whole row of cross hatching manually. Now I am going to be making sure that I am using my needlepoint laser light to perfectly select the points of each cross hatch that I have already sewn out. So what that means is that on my screen, it might not match perfectly on my screen with the cross hatching. I don't care about that. I care about it matching on my physical actual quilt. That's the whole reason why we're doing this, because it never seems to line up when you drag and drop and you're doing all cross hatching, if that makes sense. So
even if they were off a little bit, we're making up for that here. That's
right. But on the screen, it might not look right on the screen when we do this, but it doesn't matter what the screen looks like. It matters what we physically do down here. So now that it's done 2 rows of cross hatching, we're going to have to go back to that mark feature. So the first thing I'm going to do is select cancel on my screen and go to Pro-Stitcher and record so that I have mark right here. Okay. And I don't have to have that snap to grid on. Now, what I do is important on how I line it up on my physical quilt. If these marks that I'm creating, marking each point of my crosshatch, is not the same as my screen up here, that is okay. That's the whole point of this, is when you do crosshatching and you drag and drop, things don't stay where they're supposed to stay. It just is almost impossible. So I'm putting my needlepoint laser light exactly on the first point of my crosshatch, and I'm going to select the mark feature, which is the diamond button on my handlebar, but the mark feature on my screen. So there's mark, and then I am going to do this as carefully and as perfectly as possible I've got that needlepoint laser light lined up with the top of this crosshatch, and I'm going to select the diamond button again. I'm going up at a diagonal, and I'm doing the diamond button again, and I'm coming down at a diagonal.
Swing across the other side. Move all the way to the right.
And then I'm going to move up. And you can't lean on your bar because that will change where it sews. You have to make sure you're not touching the bars of your frame.
Don't be an atom.
Yeah.
I'm so bad at that.
I am too. I am so bad at it. And I am being as perfect as I can be.
My favorite thing, and I just noticed that it happened there, sometimes you hit the button and you don't hear the ding. Make sure you hear the ding.
Yes. Okay. Now, here's the thing. I needed to create one more line right here, but I don't have anything to connect it to because our quilt's ended. So I'm just going to very carefully move it, trying to make sure I keep that diagonal just to the outside edge of my quilt, and I'm going to create one more little bitty line right there. Okay? Now, some people would go ahead and do the other half of the crosshatching. I'm a simple-minded person. I like to do one thing at a time. So I'm going to let it stitch out this crosshatch row that I just created, and then we're going to go finish it off.
Will you move your machine to the center so we can see the screen? Because I have a glare. Perfect. So this is... Oops.
You want me to zoom in so they can see better?
There we are. So this is the design that was currently created. It is just this zigzag right there that's interior. And like she said earlier, it might be off a little bit because we're lining up with the quilt top that tends to shift, fabric's fluid, and not worrying about the design on our screen. So you're going to stitch this one out?
I'm going to stitch this one out, and then we're going to create the other half of it.
All right. So she's going to pro-stitch her quilt and run. We'll see you back here in a second. All right, so this is the design that was just stitched. We've made little hearts.
Yes.
I mean, really, you could leave this like this between it and have little hearts, so like kind of do another design. But this was the zigzag that was dinged in. So you can see a lot of you have trouble getting these points just right when you do a crosshatch across a whole quilt. This is creating those, you're basically creating that point as you mark across that quilt. So you're getting perfect points every time. So what are we doing now?
So now we're going to finish that off and do the next diagonal that needs to be done to make it all one complete crosshatch.
So we're, same thing, we're gonna...
Same thing, I'm just gonna go back and I'm going to go to Pro-Stitcher and record. I'm gonna clear out what it's already marked.
Let me zoom in so they can see how you do that.
Okay.
All right, we're zoomed in. I think we can see.
Okay, so I'm going to clear out that row that it just quilted for me. And now I'm going to create my new mark row. So I've already got it on the very first point. I'm going to select mark. I'm going to come up to my next point, making sure, again, that I'm not leaning on the bar whatsoever.
Switch me sides, please.
Switch me sides, please. Gotcha.
You just got right in front of the camera.
Oh. I thought everybody wanted to see me. Okay.
This is such a good trick.
It really is.
Thank you, Megan Best, for the beginning of this trick, but thank you, Kelley, for like being able to make it larger. Because sometimes you don't want a 1 inch
or 2 inch.
A 1 inch or a 2 inch crosshatch.
Okay, so you're all ready for me to stitch out that row?
Let's stitch that row out.
Okay, I'm gonna come right
You're
across
good,
the
you're good.
camera.
Pro-Stitcher quilt run. Okay, so that row finished. She's trimming her thread, but look how good this crosshatch looks. And it was stitched in 3 different rows. So it's not like we just set it and forget it. We did not Ron Popeil this, okay? This is 3 separate rows that we then built in that center crosshatch. I think it looks fabulous. It's such a great trick.
Thank you.
Anything, tips, tricks that we need to know about doing this?
I just want to make reference that Megan Best has videos on this. As we've already said, I don't want to ever like steal somebody's material. And also Jenny Horton has also done a video on this on the Janome long arm page. Mm-hmm. But this was, specifically only doing 1 row at a time so we can make our crosshatch almost as big as we want to.
So when you're working with this this technique, you can't go as big as your throat space allows. And this was where my confusion came in. And Kelley's like, no, that doesn't work. You need to be able to get, remind me, I think it's the bottom of the first row to the bottom of the second row. So basically you need about 2.5 rows. In our case, we're doing 5-inch rows. So we need 12.5 inches because we need to be able to ding here, but also stitch this row out to be able to ding the top of that. I guess in theory you could have a bigger spot, but then you're rolling fabric and batting and backing up. So without basting that or doing something to hold that negative space abyss down while you're quilting everything else, you're probably going to run into some issues, some puckering, some fullness and stuff.
But I honestly think you don't want to do much bigger than this anyway. 5 inches.
Right, about a palm.
Because anything bigger than that, I don't even think it would look right, but I think it would get fullness. Yeah, agreed.
So you'll have to also look at your batting. We're using Quilter's
that's
Dream, so we can do it 100
it's the
inches
best.
apart. Any final words? Remind everyone where they can find you. Thank you so much, by the way. Like, I think this is such a cool technique, and definitely changes the way I think about crosshatch. You know, think about like offsetting, like getting your base design and offsetting it 1/4 inch, and now you have double crosshatch, or making it taller, and now you have diamonds instead of squares.
Oh yeah, you can do that.
Because I think as long as you have the height, you can still ding. I think depending on how skinny your diamonds are, you're going to start getting real confused.
Yes.
Like, where did I ding?
Like, just start out with the basic of what we call
Start out
and
here.
then get creative.
Try a 4-inch. You know. Okay, remind everyone where they can find you.
You can find me on Facebook as Kelley McKenzie, or on Instagram as KelleySoSew, S-O, and then Sew, S-E-W.
KelleySoSew, S-O-S-E-W.
Only because KelleySoSew, S-E-W, S-E-W, was taken.
We got you, Kelley. We're coming for you. And for real?
Yeah, for real.
And this is Kelley?
Yeah. Like, seriously?
That's funny. I wonder if I know who that is. Everyone, thank you for watching. Don't forget you can follow me, Adam So Fun, with an S-E-W on Facebook and Instagram. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you're notified when new videos drop. There's going to be some new videos because I'm here. We're making them. Yeah. We have just done a slew of videos today. We're excited. We have a live tomorrow. We have a special live tomorrow. We have we're having fun. What did we call it earlier?
I don't remember.
We already forgot. It was so long ago. Oh, it's exhausting. We'll see you in the next one.